This show is brought to you by the All Pro Nation Radio Network. Be sure to like and subscribe and check us out online at allpronation.com, where fans have a voice.
Hey, we've got episode 16 of the Sports Greeks podcast. In Major League Baseball, we got the Philadelphia Phillies turning back the clock to 1964. We've got the Boston Red Sox, who doubled their loss total over the weekend and got no hit. We're going to talk some NBA with Nate Bush from Wide Men Can't Jump. He's going to give us his thoughts on the playoffs. He's going to come out of the very competitive Eastern Conference and also from the Western Conference. Going to talk a little bit of NHL hockey and the Philadelphia Flyers. So the Sports Greeks podcast is coming up right now. Hello and welcome to episode 16 of the Sports Greeks podcast. This is your host, Victor Logathetis, and we're going to talk about a lot of different things today. Some Major League Baseball, some NBA playoff action, talk a little bit about the NHL as well. So let's get the business stuff out of the way first. The Twitter handle is @BigGreek24, so follow me on Twitter. I will follow you back, I promise. Facebook page is The Sports Greek. We also have an email address, which is victorlogo13@gmail.com. I also contribute to two sports blogs. AllProNation.com is one, and PhillySportsBlogs.com is the other. So wherever you got the show from, whether it's Apple Podcasts, whether it's the Libsyn feed, or whether it's through the APN radio network, thanks for downloading and taking a few moments to listen to the show. So talking about Major League Baseball, and we're going to get into some of the really good stuff, but real sad story. Friday night, the White Sox game, pitcher Danny Farquhar went two-thirds of an inning on Friday and went into the dugout and essentially just collapsed. Thankfully, it was in the dugout. The medical staff, the athletic staff was there. They were able to get medical attention to him very quickly to avoid what could have been a very disastrous situation. But still, unfortunately, the young man suffered from a brain hemorrhage and a ruptured aneurysm. He had surgery Saturday to take some of the pressure off the brain. He's currently in critical condition but stable in the ICU unit at Rush. Unfortunately, his wife and mother were both at the game. But that just has to be a very scary situation. Our thoughts and prayers go out to Danny Farquhar and his family. Hopefully he will recover. Whether he ever pitches again is certainly not the issue at this point. It's, will he recover and have a quality of life? He's evidently responsive at this point and everything. So, again, thankful that if this had to happen, it happened where it did, where he was surrounded by staff and medical people that knew exactly what to do and get him right to the hospital as quickly as possible to get the situation taken care of. Farquhar is expected to stay in the hospital for the next few weeks. The White Sox issued a statement today, and in that statement did say that anyone wishing to send get well wishes certainly could do so. Get well wishes and letters of support should be addressed to him at Guaranteed Rate Field, 33, let's try that again. Guaranteed Rate Field, 333 West 35th Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60616. So again, please, I ask my listeners and anybody who follows me to, take a moment and send some prayers and thoughts along to Danny Farquhar, and hoping that he has a speedy and full recovery and is able to continue with good quality of life. It's very easy to forget a lot of times. We watch these guys on the stage, and we get pissed off at them if they don't do well, or we, you yell stuff at them sometimes. You boo these guys. They're human beings. You certainly don't ever wish anything like what happened with him on Friday night would happen to anyone, let alone someone, in that on that stage in that profession or in any stage of life for that matter. So again, well wishes out to Danny Farquhar. So let's talk about some good things now in Major League Baseball. The Philadelphia Phillies, after after a dreadful start, they're a 1-4 start. They are now 13-3. Seems that Gabe Kapler has righted the ship. There's a guy that got booed off the field. He went to make a pitching change in the home opener a few weeks back. But it seems like an eternity now that he pulled Aaron Nola in that opener in Atlanta, and the whole thing backfired on the Phillies. Are 13-3. They're getting contributions from a lot of different people. Some big hit from Altier to put them over the Pirates on Sunday to sweep a 4-game series. Jake Arrieta's last 2 starts have been phenomenal, including the series opener against the Pirates. Hoskins on Saturday with a 3-run homer to erase a 2-0 lead. So they're getting contributions from a lot of different places. This is going to be a fun team to watch. And I know it's only 21 games, but they're 14-7. They're a half a game behind the Mets in the National League East. And again, I know it's a small sample size, but it's been a lot of fun to watch. I know the Phillies have not beaten a lot of good teams. I mean, the Pirates got out to a nice start, but they really hadn't played anybody. And the Phillies have not shown yet they can beat the Braves, who really aren't as bad as people thought they were going to be, and they've not been able to really beat the Mets. They've beaten up on the teams they should beat up on. The Reds, the Marlins, those guys, even the Tampa Bay Rays. So now they're going to have a chance starting tomorrow with the Diamondbacks coming in, and the National League Player of the Week, Patrick Corbin, who threw a complete game shutout, one-hit shutout of the Giants last week and struck out 11 in the process. This is a guy that's having an unbelievable start to his season. So they're going to come in. And they're leading the National League West right now with a 15-6 record, which I remember going through our preseason stuff. I didn't think the Diamondbacks would be this good. I went and saw them play out in Arizona in spring training, and they just didn't seem like they were going to score any runs. They looked awful the games that we got to see them play. But here they are in first place, and they're another team, very scrappy, getting a lot of contributions from a lot of different people. They've yet to have anything from Steven Souza Jr., who got hurt in a spring training game against the Giants trying to dive for a fly ball. Ended up being a double off the bat of Brandon Belt. So this is going to be a fun series to see what happens with the Phillies. And the Phillies are doing this really without the help of Carlos Santana, who's in about $150 right now, though he's playing outstanding defense. And maybe I was wrong about Jake Arrieta. Maybe he's going to come in here and turn back the clock 3 years. I wouldn't mind it. Despite every, I'm a Phillies fan after all. I certainly don't want to see this team lose. But I was trying to have realistic expectations for the season. And when you have a team that won 66 games last year, it's hard to imagine that they're going to go plus 20 and make the playoffs with a cast of very young, untested players. You look at Rhys Hoskins. All he's done is hit 320-something with close to a 500 on-base percentage. He's got I think he's walked 19 times in 80-some plate appearances. Going into Sunday's game, he had 61 at-bats. I think he got 3 or 4 at-bats on Sunday, so 65 at-bats roughly. He's walked 19 times. I mean, that's phenomenal. He seems like – he looks like the real deal. I mean, he's not bothered. The home run he hit on Saturday was an 0-2 pitch. It doesn't seem to bother him. 0-2, 1-2, whatever. He can hit pretty much any count. Last week against the Braves, after striking out, I think, 3 consecutive times. He, again, was down, 2 strikes to the pitcher, fought off a ball the opposite way for a double to give the Phillies a win over the Braves. I mean, he just doesn't seem like anything phases this kid. He's got a good approach at the plate, which is one of the things that we knew that he had coming through the minors. It was one of the things that was talked about before he came up last year, that even in the minors, he showed incredible patience at the plate and good pitch recognition. So he certainly has shown that so far. And we'll see. Pitchers are going to adjust to him. He's going to start having to hold off on pitches. People are going to start going probably low and outside on him a lot and pitching around him. And, we'll see how it works out. But right now for the Phillies, a lot to be excited about. A lot to be excited about in New York and the Mets. They're 14-6. They're off to a hell of a start. Everybody's healthy, and they're getting really good starting pitching. And Juris Familia looks like the Familia from 15 and 16, locking down 50-some-odd games a year back then. It just, again, never got started last year, got hurt. So we'll see. And, some news for the Mets now. The Dark Knight, Matt Harvey, is finally going to go to the bullpen. 4 starts, a 6 ERA, a 1.43 whip. I think of the 4 starts, he only pitched 5 innings in 3 of them. So he's going to have to get his stuff worked out in the bullpen, it looks like. He's not happy, and actually that's probably a good thing, to be honest with you. I think that's the motivator. This is his walk year for Harvey. So here he is. He's coming into a season. This is his walk year. This is an opportunity to have a good season, go out in the free agent market and get some real dollars. And he's not pitching well, and he's going to get banished to the bullpen. So we'll see what he does with it. One thing about Matt Harvey I know I've never liked is it just seems like he's a head case. And that we'll see how that plays out now with him going out to the bullpen. There's only, really one way this could go, and he can embrace it and come out and pitch well when he's called upon, and pitch well enough to get back in the rotation, or he could just pitch awful, and then the Mets are going to have to make a decision at some point whether or not they just keep him in the as a mop up guy, or send him down to AAA, or even just give him his outright release and just cut ties with him completely. So we'll see, but. For the time being, 20 games, the Mets are up to 14-6. They're leading the National League East with the Phillies a half a game behind them for now. It's only 20 games in. The Nationals certainly have righted it a little bit. They've been playing better, but they're down some players. Rendon just went on the disabled list, their third baseman. They haven't had their second baseman, Murphy, all year. So there's a couple things there that, they're key cogs in that lineup. Zimmerman hasn't gotten off to the start that he would have liked to have gotten off to. Catching situation is not good. They still have the pitching. You still got Gio, you still got Strasburg, you still got Scherzer. Hellickson pitched a pretty good game on Sunday. Unfortunately, got wasted, but still, pretty solid performance there. So the Nationals have plenty of time to stake their claim, so to speak, to the division. So we'll see how it all works out. And the Braves are leading the National League in runs scored. Anybody thought that was going to happen? They signed Jose Bautista to a minor league deal with the idea that he'll play third base. I'm not a believer of that. I don't think he can play third at this stage of his career. I think the best spot for him would be a designated hitter role, which in the National League you cannot have. But evidently he has played well so far in the minors, so we'll see if and when he gets called up, how he'll do over at the hot corner for the Braves. Ronald Acuna's timetable is starting to tick. Everybody's waiting to see when they're going to call him up. He got off to a slow start. The 20-year-old outfielder had a pretty solid spring. The Braves are looking to call him up soon. They just want to make sure that when they call him up, he's going to be ready to go. You want him to have some success in the minors and then translate that right and roll that success right into his major league call-up, which more than likely will come on the road. So we'll see what happens with Acuna. But talking about the Phillies again for a moment, their 9-1 start at home is the best home start they've had since 1964. And I wasn't around yet, and I'm sure a lot of my listeners weren't, but 1964 was a year that the Phillies unexpectedly led the National League by as many as 9 games with about 12 to play and absolutely collapsed. And I think they finished either in third place or tied for second as the Cardinals ended up winning the pennant on the next to last or last day of the season. So, could this year be like the 1964 season? I guess anything's possible, but it seems that they've turned back the clock to 1964 in Philadelphia. The 9-1 home start. We'll see what they do against the D-backs. Going out to Boston in the American League East, they actually had their loss total doubled over the weekend. They were sitting at 16-2 and got no hit by the Oakland A's on Friday. They won Saturday and they lost on Sunday. So they're just chugging along. They got an 8-2 run. And I'm sorry, they did not get no hit on Friday. It was Saturday. My bad. They've lost their last 2 ball games in a row. So they've doubled their loss total in a matter of a couple of days. So they actually were 17-2. I stand corrected on that. Sorry about that. So Sean Mania, the A's lefty, also the co-player of the week in the American League with Manny Machado. Machado only hit about 500 with like 5 home runs, whatever. So, but the Red Sox, despite all that, are still maintaining a 4-game lead in the American League East. I said at the beginning of the year they were the team to beat in my mind. I like their starting pitching. Getting J.D. Martinez, I like their lineup. And so far they have not disappointed at all. just cruising through and just beating everybody that gets put in front of them. The Blue Jays are in second place at 4 games out at 13-8. The Yankees, who were 7-7 at one point, have actually gone 4-2 since that time. They're starting to kind of get their legs under them a little bit. Stanton's starting to hit the ball a little bit. Andujar's playing a good third base, and they just called up Gleyber Torres to play second, sent Tyler Wade out to the minors. So the baby Bombers are starting to get put together a little bit now. You're starting to see the young guns up there. You got Tyler Austin at first base. You got Judge out in the outfield. You've got Torres and Andujar and Sanchez behind the plate. So, you're starting to see a very young Yankee lineup. Okay, I think the lineup they put out there on Sunday, the oldest guy in the lineup was Romine, the catcher, who's 29. So a very, very youthful. Their roster was old a couple of years ago. They turned it over. So they're looking good and young, which spells good things for the Yankees going forward. But we'll see if they can dig out of this. They're 5.5 games out of first place. We'll see if they can dig out of that and challenge the Red Sox for the American League East. After a hot start that included a 7-game winning streak for the Angels, you've seen them come back down to earth, and the Astros have since taken over the division in the American League West, sitting at 16-7, a 7-3 run after the Angels gone on a 5-5 run. I think they've actually lost 5 of their last 6. And again, it's who they're playing early on in the season. They're playing teams like the Rangers and the Royals, and now they had to go out and play the Giants and some of these other teams, and they're just not quite in that same ballpark yet. So they're you're starting to see what they're really like. And the Astros, again, probably better than they were a year ago. The Indians have also taken over their division over the Twins. They're 11-8. So we'll see what happens the rest of the way. But it seems that the teams we expected to see are starting to kind of rise and take over. Houston, Cleveland, and the American League, Boston. The Yankees are starting to kind of creep up. We'll see if they take over the Blue Jays here soon. In the National League, you've got the Mets and the Phillies. nobody had those two teams at the top of the National League East. But Washington's starting to come back. And again, they're doing it without some of their big contributors like Rendon and Daniel Murphy. The Central, the Cubs are 10-9, and they're just a couple of games off the pace. You've got a big bunching of teams there. You got the Cardinals and Brewers are tied. The Pirates coming off that tough sweep of the at the hands of the Phillies, losing 4 in a row. They were 12-6. Now they're 12-10. But I don't think we expected the Pirates to be there anyway. So they'll probably end up falling back. The Cubs, I'm sure, will kind of take off a little bit. They had a big scare with Chris Bryant getting hit in the head yesterday or Sunday, and thankfully there was no concussion, and hopefully he's okay and he'll be able to get back in the lineup here soon. But yeah, the Brewers 7-3 start. They've won 6 in a row. They're on a run, and again, I liked them as a team to take a step back from last year, but it seems like they're going to try and prove me wrong. They've had some big wins here the last couple weeks, so they're hanging right in there with the Cardinals. And the Cardinals seem to just always be there every year, every freaking year. The Cardinals just seem to hang in there and be there. But we'll see. The Cubs are the Cubs are like that snake in the grass. They're going to start coming up, and the Dodgers are starting to kind of see their way out of things. They're now at 500. It seems that Kenley Jansen has overcome some of his early struggles. He only blew 1 save last year. He's already blown 2 or 3 this year. Locked down 1 yesterday, and seems like Grandal is hitting the ball really well for the Dodgers and carrying that offense. And that offense is missing, Turner at third base, who broke his hand in spring training. So the Dodgers have had to kind of make some adjustments on the fly there. But seems like Grandal's hitting the ball really well. We'll see how the Dodgers fare, but they were one of the teams. If you look at the big, the big guys, we'll say in the leagues, the Dodgers are one of the teams I actually kind of worried about if they continue to struggle, and not so much because of Jansen, just more or less their starting pitching. I mean, they got a year last year out of Alex Wood that you just may never see happen again. The start he got off to and everything else. Kershaw's Kershaw. obviously, but their lineup, Bellinger had a historical rookie year last year. Taylor had an unbelievable season that, you never saw him have before. Turner the last few years has been unbelievable. Seager, the shortstop, again, he's the real deal. Grandal behind the plate is a guy that tends to put together, I want to say, like 3/4 of a season and kind of fades at the end. But we'll see how they do this year. But they're a team that if they don't get it figured out soon, I would start worrying about the Dodgers. The Giants got Samardzija back. They're sitting at 9-12, which isn't terrible, but not great. They'll get Bumgarner back probably at the end of May. He had the pins taken out of his hand. So he'll be able to start some baseball activities here soon and get back and ready to go. The Rockies are hovering around 500. Again, I'm not a big believer in them either. I don't like their pitching staff. That ballpark kills them. So we'll see if the Diamondbacks are for real. We'll see if Patrick Corbin, the new ace of the D-backs, can continue to pitch as he has. Talking about the NFL draft, which is going to be this coming Thursday, you see a lot of mock drafts. You see a lot of different things and what quarterback's going to go where and this, that, and the other. I've been a big proponent, and I've said it on this show, and I'll say it again, and I'm seeing it picked up in the media more and more now, other shows and stuff that I see. I'm the Browns, and I'm serious about this. You got 2 picks in the top 4. I take Saquon Barkley with the first overall pick. I really do. You got Tyrod Taylor to play quarterback now. He can give you a year or two. You're not winning anything anytime soon. You're not going to the Super Bowl in the next 2 years. So, unless John Dorsey really can tell me or tell anybody that of the big 4 quarterbacks, he can tell the one that's better than all the other 4, you take Barkley. Because Barkley clearly is the best player at his position in this draft. Heads and shoulders, no doubt about it. So if I'm the Browns, I'd take Barkley at 1. We come back at 4, and you've got some options. You got some options there. You could take Chubb at 4. You certainly could do that. You could trade out of the pick, or you take the best quarterback that's left on the table. And, Mike Mayock said it too on Saturday. I heard him on as a guest on a radio program. But what Mayock had to say on the radio program, basically, none of the quarterbacks in this draft, none of the top ones anyway, reminded him of Carson Wentz or Luck. Okay, he sees he does think the Browns are going to take Darnold first, and he thinks that Rosen could drop, that Allen could go high as well. So the whole point here, and I've heard other folks say this too, unless you really can tell which quarterback of the big 4 are going to be the guy, can the Browns really afford to make another mistake? I say they cannot. So, you grab Barkley at the first pick, you come back at 4. If there's a quarterback sitting there you like, maybe it's Rosen, maybe Allen drops to 4. I don't know. You grab one of those guys, or you grab Chubb if you don't like any of the quarterbacks that are left. I mean, you're not cemented into taking a quarterback here. You don't have to. But if the Browns take a quarterback, which is what is likely to happen, then the Giants more than likely will take Saquon Barkley the second pick. And they're of the opinion, for whatever reason, this is what I hear from the New York outlets, that Eli Manning, in their opinion, can give them another couple of years. It's kind of funny. I don't see it. But I will say that, there's no shame in taking Barkley even second. He really looks like he's going to be a hell of a player out of Penn State. I mean, a really solid player. And as an Eagles fan, I don't want to see this guy twice a year in my division. You have to see him and Ezekiel Elliott in the Eagles division. That's just not going to be much fun. But they could take Barkley with the second pick, and if Manning doesn't do anything, or if he just really sucks the next season, hell, we could see Nick Foles quarterback in the Giants next season. So we'll see. Speaking of Nick Foles and the Eagles, take a break from the NFL draft for a second. The Eagles gave Foles a little $2 million bonus, and now a mutual option for 2019. Bravo to the Eagles. They didn't have to do that. They really didn't. They had all the leverage. They didn't have to do anything. But they like Foles. Foles likes being a Philly, so they gave him a $2 million bump, and they got the mutual club and player option for the following season. So I think that's good news for everybody involved. So that's a good thing. Because again, not knowing exactly when Wentz will be back, does it really hurt you to have the guy that won the Super Bowl leading the team out of the tunnel on Thursday Night Football when they take on the Atlanta Falcons? Yeah, I said the Atlanta Falcons, not the Minnesota Vikings. When the schedule came out, it shocked the hell out of me that it wasn't the Vikings coming to Philadelphia on that opener, the Falcons. I think the NFL missed a huge opportunity there. That would have been the debut of Kirk Cousins coming into Philly, where he's played many times before and played well as a member of the Redskins. And I think the NFL screwed that one up. I really do. I really do. And, the NFL does an absolutely fantastic job marketing their sport. They've made the draft into an unbelievable event. I got to go to the one in Philly last year, and it was just amazing. It really was. And it's one of those things. If it comes to your city or a city that you can get to within an hour, go. The event is free. You can go. You can go in and you can go around all the exhibits and everything they're bringing. And they bring in so much to see. It's unbelievable. I know there's a cost for the tickets to actually see the actual draft, but the nice thing, no matter where you are in the venue, even if you're not in the arena where they're making the actual picks, and I was fortunate enough to have a ticket, and where they're actually making the picks by the art museum, but throughout the venue they had monitors all over the place, and you could watch and hear what was going on. While just going through all the different exhibits they had. It was just an unbelievable event. But the one thing I don't want to see, and people have talked about this, the whole thing with the schedule. All the schedule does, and I heard somebody say this, and I agree with it, all the schedule does is just tells you who you're playing and everything. And, it's I don't want to see them make a big deal out of it, have the big schedule unveiling and all this other crap. I don't think it does anything, to be honest with you, because let's go back to last year, okay? When the schedule came out, we saw that the Rams were on your schedule. Your initial thought was, hey, there's an easy win, right? I mean, in all seriousness. People saw the Eagles on their schedule or outside of the division, and they just probably thought, up-and-coming team. Carson Wentz is a decent rookie, wasn't great, wasn't bad. We'll see how the Eagles play this year. If you had the Cowboys and Giants on your schedule, you're thinking, geez, they're going to be tough games. The Cowboys were 13-3 last year. They're up and coming. You got Elliott, awesome rookie. Prescott had a fantastic rookie year. He's just gonna keep getting better. Didn't happen, did it? Giants playoff team. Manning's got some weapons now. They brought in Brandon Marshall. They're gonna have a nice offense. That didn't work. They had a fantastic defense the year before. That certainly didn't live up to any kind of expectations. You had the Falcons on your schedule. Hey, defending NFC champions. There's a team that blew a 28 lead in the Super Bowl. They're gonna be hungry. They're gonna be coming. Well, and they had a good year, but they snuck into playoffs as the last seed. You see the Seahawks on your schedule, you see the Packers. So my point is you do not know until you play the teams, until you get to that point in your schedule, what you have. You just don't. You just really don't know. And to make a big deal out of the schedule, it's meaningless because you just never know. There's teams that you think are going to be really good that stink. There's teams you think are awful that actually do well. It's just, I don't want to see them make a big deal out of the schedule. Not at all. It's one of those things. But the draft Thursday, it's going to be very interesting. Once the Browns make their pick, that kind of sets everything. Okay, because if you hear Gettleman talk in New York, he's kind of talking about Barkley like he did McCaffrey last year. So you got to think they're going to take Barkley unless he's taken by the Browns, which, again, is what I would do. The Jets are, they traded up, and, they didn't trade up to grab a defensive player or a running back, or they traded up to get a quarterback. They want one of these guys that are going to be sitting there at 3. Make no mistake about that. The Broncos, I believe they're sitting at 5. You know, they're hoping there's going to be a quarterback sitting there too. But we'll see. There could be some jostling for position. There could be some trades made. You know, I've said before, maybe the Bills move up. Maybe they make a deal with the Giants. You know, maybe the Giants cool on Barkley and they decide to trade down and get some more draft capital, get some more picks. You know, really, you know, get some more picks and continue to try and put that team together. So we'll see. It's going to be a very interesting draft. It really will be. You know, we'll see what happens. And as always, you know, for the Eagles, we're sitting there at 32. So we'll see we'll see where they pick. See if they trade the pick. You know, it's there is that rumor out there. They certainly could end up trading that pick as well. And if the Eagles do happen to stay at 32. A couple of interesting names coming up. There's a running back out of Georgia, Sonny Michel. I know one of the writers in Philly likes him in terms of their pick at 32. You have the tight end Mike Gesicki of Penn State, who most certainly will be there. And see, this is where it gets a little interesting with these guys. That's where the Eagles could potentially trade out of that pick and still get one of those two guys. A lot's going to depend on what happens up to that point. You could get a team that's in the early second round knock on the Eagles' door and say, "Hey, there's still a guy that has fallen that we want," and they make the deal with Philly. Philly still gets one of the players they want, even if it's at say 35 or 36, and go from there. The Eagles don't need a lot. I mean, the one thing they've done is they've done a fantastic job really keeping the team together. So that's a testament to the general manager, testament to both Howie Roseman and Joe Douglas. Like they've done an outstanding job with this football team. It's funny again. I've said this before. Let's go back 2 years, 2 off seasons to the dumpster fire that ended the Chip Kelly era, and look to where they are now. It's like night and day. It's like, and honestly, it's like that in the whole entire landscape of Philadelphia sports. If you really want to, discuss it. The Phillies are certainly exceeding some expectations here early. And again, it's early. It's 21 games. I get it. You've got 141 left to go, and certainly they could still have a huge losing streak somewhere along the line. Anything's possible. We'll talk about the Sixers. We've got the co-host from Wide Men Can't Jump going to be on the program here, talking about the NBA. You've got the Flyers, who are very young. We're going to talk about them in a moment as well. But, the Eagles situation is just outstanding. Speaking of the Eagles, as we know, they had traded for Darryl Worley, cornerback from the Panthers. That was the Torrey Smith deal. Unfortunately, he was arrested Sunday a week ago, I guess, and within 12 hours, the Eagles released him. He was asleep in his car. Cops came up on him. He was combative. He had to be tased. And I guess given some of the other situations they dealt with, they wanted nothing to do with it, and they released him. Well, the Oakland Raiders didn't seem to have a problem with any of this, and they have inked him to a contract as of today. So glad to see that he landed on his feet, a young man. He's from Philadelphia. Would have been nice to see him play in his own backyard. A very unfortunate situation. Something that really could have gone a lot worse than it did, quite honestly. Anytime you get the police involved and tasers and you've got guns in the car, that's not a good scene for anybody. So hopefully, certainly there will be a suspension at some point for him when the NFL gets done with their investigation. But the Raiders didn't seem to care about any of that. They went out and signed him. I guess they believe that he's young enough, has enough talent, and Coach John Gruden, I guess, figures he can work with that. And the Raiders have a history of this stuff, going all the way back to the John Madden days. They didn't care about any of that stuff. They only cared about what the player brought to them on the football field, what helped them win football games. I've heard John Madden say in interviews all the time. He never, made his players get dressed special for flights and all this other stuff and the hair and all this other crap. He basically had 3 basic rules: is be on time, listen when I talk, and play like hell when I tell you to. That was it. And it certainly worked well for him. And the Raiders back in the day had some very questionable characters, and it's always kind of been their legacy that they don't mind the character stuff. So again, hope this works out for Worley. Hope if there's a problem that he gets help. You don't want to see this happen again. Because, whether it be a situation with the police or something a little more severe, you might not be able to walk away from it the next time. So that's where we're at there. And then you have the Cowboys parting ways with Dez Bryant, longtime wide receiver, who just has not had any kind of success the last 3 years, at least not what success you've equated to being what a Dez Bryant year would be. He's been hurt. His last really good year was 2014. He had 88 catches and 1,300 yards that year. He just has not been the same player the last 3 years. Certainly not worth the money he was getting paid, which is upwards around $12 million. So they tried to rework the deal. He didn't want to. They released him, and he remains out there unsigned. So we'll see where he lands. I think he's told all his friends and everything. I'll see it twice a year, which would intimate that he thinks he could go into the NFC East, but I don't think anybody is currently interested, even though looking at past history, that's the kind of move that Daniel Snyder would be all over, bringing in a guy that's maybe past his prime, pay him a little bit of money, and see if they can get anything out of him. But there's rumors he can end up on the West Coast, whether it be with the Rams or Raiders, maybe even out in the desert with the Cardinals. So we'll see again how that works out. Back to baseball for a second. The Reds fired their manager last week. They're off to just a monumentally bad start. Brian Price was let go. They're sitting at 3-18 here on Monday. That's a terrible start. And, it's one of those things you don't like to see a guy lose his job. Jim Riggleman is taking over. He's the guy who walked away from the Nationals when they refused to extend his contract a few years back. So Davey Johnson then stepped in and took over. But he'll be the interim manager. There's talk that maybe Barry Larkin should get the job. That stuff's all well and good, but great players don't always make great managers. And do you really want to bring an icon in from your ball club? Yeah, it'll put cheeks in seats. You're right. Everybody come out and see Barry Larkin. The old scene from the old conversation from A League of Their Own. The owner tells Tom Hanks' character, come on out and step out of the dugout, wave to the people, wave your little hat, and go back in and give the people a thrill. So everybody will come out to see Barry Larkin come out and tip his hat, and they'll get a big thrill out of that. Here's the issue with this, and I saw it in Philly too. Okay, and Yankee fans have seen it, especially older Yankee fans have seen it with some of their icons. It doesn't always work. The Phillies gave Larry Ball the opportunity to manage a team. They got a little bit of a lift early. At the end, they had to fire him, and they brought in Charlie Manuel. And, it's just it creates hard feelings. Alan Trammell and the Tigers. Here's a guy that was, a longtime Tiger, great shortstop. Hall of Famer now, and he had to get fired. I know that didn't sit well. Pete Rose comes back and manages the Reds when they were in one of their darkest times in the '84 season, and again he got a little bit of a lift. He couldn't get him over the hump. He ends up getting suspended for life for the gambling stuff, and you never win. The Yankees and Yogi Berra back in the day, you managed him in the 60s, you managed him in the 80s, and there was a point where he wouldn't even come back for any of the old-timer stuff. He was so angry with Steinbrenner. Billy Martin won a world championship, but, that certainly didn't end well in any of the times, and they kept going back to him. It's just, go get the best manager for the job. Don't worry about the name. Don't worry about who the guy that's an icon of the ball club. Let the icons of the ball club come out, be a part of the team during spring training, be a part of the team when you have the big celebrations, like for the Reds, for the Big Red Machine, 75 and 76. Larkin's case, the 90 Reds that he was part of. Let him come out for that stuff. Don't bring him in to manage just because you think you need a name or you want something like that. Build a team the right way. And get a baseball guy in there that can do the job, or or some sort of really good communicator, and go from there. But it's some of this other stuff's just garbage. And the Reds, they're in a very bad way. They've got some good young players, but it's is this going to be the year that they deal Joey Votto somewhere, because he's not doing them any good, and they're 3-18, and he's just getting older, as every passing day goes along. The Orioles as well, and I don't think this is Buck Showalter's fault in any way, shape, or form. They had no pitching going into spring training. They made some good signings. Cashner, I liked Alex Cobb. They brought back Tillman on an inexpensive contract, but they're hitting .215 as a team. Trumbo's been hurt, has not played yet. Mancini hurt himself on, I think, Friday, sliding into the wall, hurt his knee, and he's still not back in the lineup. So he may have to go on the disabled list. They're not hitting. Outside of Machado, they're not hitting at all. And, at what point do you have to just kind of say, okay, we got to trade Machado to get something for him? They're 11.5 games out of first place in the cellar in the American League East. And if they don't get back to, if they have got to get back to 500 quickly, because even with the second wild card in play, you still got a bunch of teams to hop over. But at what point do you say, this might not be Buck's fault, but the team needs a different voice? There comes a time when the clubhouse just stops responding to the guy who's doing the talking. The Mets did it with Terry Collins. Was it his fault? The Mets had all the injuries they had the last year or so, and the fact that their general manager didn't adequately replace key players who were hurt. Notice this year they did. And that's I don't want to go on a tangent about the Mets again and the Terry Collins thing, but there's a guy I think that really got a real screw job. Alderson had to know last year that David Wright was not going to play. He was not going to be well enough to play. Now this year they fixed it when they got Todd Frazier. And they had a bunch of injuries. None of that's Terry Collins' fault. What happened in the Mets last year absolutely is not Terry Collins' fault in any way, shape, or form. It just is not. So, but talking about the Orioles with Showalter, they're going to have to make some decisions. They're going to be tough decisions to have to make, and their general manager might not be around for the long haul either. So they're going to have to make some really tough decisions. One of them could be with the manager, and if they don't start playing well, he could be the next guy on a hot seat. That could be gone. So we'll stay tuned for that. We'll see what happens. But yeah, the hitting .215 is a ball club right now, and they've wasted some good starts. Bundy, in the span of a week, had 2 outstanding starts. It just got wasted by the bullpen. And I know they don't have Britton back and all that, but man, I tell you, I watched them over the weekend. A close game against the Indians got away from them in the 9th, and they're down I think 4-3, and I think they ended up losing 6 or 7-3. But they're just not. They're not hitting at all. They're not able to score runs. They are either dead last or last in every meaningful offensive category in the American League right now. And if not for Manny Machado, instead of what is their record? They're sitting at 6-16. I'll tell you what, if not for Manny Machado, they might very well be like 2-20. So that's again, we'll see how that all shakes out with the O's. So before we get to our interview with Wide Men Can't Jump, who's oddly enough now also a member of the APN radio network along with us. We're all part of the same network now, so certainly going to be able to hopefully get some interviews with them. They're the Wide Men Can't Jump is an NBA podcast, so we'll see how they do with the network and everything. I'm excited to have them on the show here to get some NBA information with the playoffs and all that. Before we do that, the NHL, the Flyers, talking about Philadelphia sports, the Sixers are obviously doing real well. The third seed in the Eastern Conference. They're up 3 games to 1 on the Heat. We'll talk about them after I play the interview with Wide Men Can't Jump folks. The Phillies are where they are. The Eagles obviously won a Super Bowl. Then you have the Flyers. Haven't won a playoff series in 6 years. Oddly enough, last time they won was against the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the one thing that's always been there with Flyer fans, different breed, okay? Totally different breed. Philly fans will boo you. Eagle fans will, Michael Strange used to say, you see three generations of Eagle fans give him the finger when he got off the bus. So we all know about the Eagles fans, and Sixers fans are also a little bit different, but pretty passionate. And they've been in the pit of misery for the past 3 or 4 years, so they're finally seeing the light. But the Flyers, Flyers for a long time were kind of the gold standard of sports in Philadelphia. I'll be 52 in a couple weeks. I was a little kid when the Flyers won their first Stanley Cups, and they were the first championships in years that Philadelphia saw, and the parades they had were just unbelievable. Millions of people showing up, and the Phillies won in '80, obviously, and the Sixers in '83. But seeing them win back-to-back Stanley Cups, there's just something about that team. There's something playing in that building with that team that just meant something, and I think somewhere along the line that's gotten lost. Yes, I know the Flyers have a good young core. I know Couturier played on a torn MCL for 2 games in the series, had a hat trick on Sunday with 2 assists. Okay, but unfortunately, winger for the Penguins had 4 goals. But Couturier, absolutely gutsy performance for 2 games, playing on a torn. How the hell do you even do that? Skating and moving. I mean, he had to be in just excruciating pain. But had a hat trick on Sunday, trying to get the Flyers to a Game 7. But, and I'm not going to say they didn't play with any kind of heart. I'm not going to say that they didn't give effort. They gave effort, just wasn't good enough. And I know they're playing a Stanley Cup champion, 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion, as I've been reminded a few times. I know they weren't supposed to win this series. I get all that. But Jesus Christ, can you freaking show up in your own building, okay, and play like you give a damn? The Flyers in 3 home games in their building in front of their fans who they're supposed to, want to play for, lose 5-1, 5-0, 8-5. I'll do the math. That's 18 goals against, 6 goals for. That is inexcusable. Ed Snyder is still spinning around in his grave. He's spinning around like one of those rotisseries, the roast beef thing, just spinning around. And it's a damn shame because that's not what he built. That's not what Flyer hockey is. And a lot was made of the fact at the end of the game that the fans were throwing beer cans out on the ice. And again, it's not funny, it's not excusable. But here's when I talk about the difference between fan bases. Flyer fans typically are hey, everything's going to be fine. They're Stepford fans. Everything's going to be fine. We'll be good. Yada, yada, yada. For them to react that way on Sunday speaks volumes to how frustrated they are in watching what they had to watch for those 3 playoff games. Forget about how much they had to spend on the tickets, and it wasn't inexpensive. But to get outscored like that in your own building, I mean, what? And again, I'm not going to talk about heart and effort, but geez Louise, can you give an effort and win one of those damn games? And you got shut out 7-0 in the opener. So 3 of the games you weren't even in. The opener was 7-0, which was in Pittsburgh. You lose 5-0, 5-1 your first 2 games at home. I mean, I don't know. And it really ticks me off is we get on Twitter and you get some of these people, media members and others, say, oh, Flyers had a great year. Hey, they're a young team and they're building and, they had a great year. They got to the playoffs and, they weren't supposed to beat the Penguins anyway. The Penguins are a real tough team. BS. Yeah, they are a tough team. They are. They totally are. So by that measure, what they should have done was not even bother to play the first round, take the top 4 teams in each conference, and move them on because none of the other seeds should have been able to beat them. That's ludicrous. It's garbage. And the way the Flyers played on Sunday for the last half, we'll say, of the game was garbage. And the way they played the other 2 games at home was garbage. The way they played the opener was garbage. I don't care who the hell they're playing. You can bring back the 80s Islanders or the 70s Canadiens. I don't give a damn. the playoffs, for Christ's sakes. You should be able to show up and actually give a damn, give an effort, and play like you mean it. Again, it's the playoffs. If you can't get up for the playoffs, you need not be playing. And you got guys playing on a torn MCL. Another guy's arms hanging off like it's on a freaking spring. Their defense is awful. They haven't had a goalie in that freaking place since the general manager, which is Hextall. Okay, and Pelle Lindbergh before that. And then you go back to Bernie Perrant. They have tried over and over again, and talk about the definition of insanity. They have tried and tried and tried to bring in goalies who are past their prime. John Van Beesbrook. Ron Hextall was one of those as well when he came back. Or just patch it together with these has-beens it never was. Okay? And I don't understand why they just can't go back in time and look back to when they were successful and when they actually won a Stanley Cup or came close when Hextall was their goalie and say, wow, we need a good goalie. We need a top-of-the-line, number one, top NHL goalie. Because that's how you win playoff series. That's how you win Stanley Cups. If you don't have Sidney Crosby on your front line, then you need to have a top flight goalie who can stand on his head and carry you through those tough games. They were up 4-2 yesterday and gave up 5 consecutive goals, which is completely inexcusable. 6 years, no playoff wins. It's been since '75, since they won a cup. And it's awful. And again, if Ed Snyder were still alive, I guarantee you today he would have had a press conference. And I'm not saying he would have fired anybody, but he would have apologized for that performance that the Flyers gave in the playoff series. And I know again that they were not the most talented team on the ice. I get that, but my God, at least play hard. Give them a fight, for Christ's sakes. The 76ers certainly could, and I know it's different because they're the favorite team in the series, but they're playing a Heat team that has won championships. Dwayne Wade has won NBA titles. He knows how to play in the playoffs. And the Sixer team, their best 2 players have never been in the playoffs before. They've got Bellinelli and Redick. They've got some guys with playoff experience, Amir Johnson. But their best 2 players have not experienced the ups and downs of the playoffs. And all the Sixers have done, and we'll get into this a little bit deeper, was blow the Heat out in Game 1, and after getting punched in the mouth Game 2, come back and blow them out in Game 3, and then won a game on Saturday, had no right winning. They got pushed around, again, punched in the mouth again, grabbed, held, pulled back, slowed down, and still managed to pull that game out to take a 3-1 lead in the series. So don't give me the, oh, my God, we're not talented enough. Show up and give it what you got. It's just unbelievable to me. So now the Flyers are going to the offseason. I got to tell you, and I was watching some stuff on TV tonight, and I'm very disappointed. People really think that Hackstall is absolutely going to be back as the head coach. I don't see it. He might have been the right guy to help develop some of these players, but I don't do in any way, shape, or form that he is the guy to take them to the next level and win a playoff series. I just don't. I don't see it. I do not see it. He has no emotion, and I'm afraid that his team emulates the coach. It does it too much, unfortunately. So now, before we move on to the NBA, we're going to actually play the interview with the host from Wide Men Can't Jump, Nate Bush, and we're going to play that for you right now. Hey, I'm honored tonight to have a guest with us. It's Nate Bush from the podcast Wide Men Can't Jump, an NBA podcast. Nate, how you doing tonight?
Doing good. How about you?
I'm good. Thanks. A lot going on with the NBA playoffs. Any surprises so far that you've seen?
The biggest surprise to me in the whole playoffs has been how good Washington was at home in the past 2 games. I left them for dead after the first 2 games against Toronto, and Washington coming out and winning 2 straight has been very surprising. Another one was the Bucks coming back after everyone counted them out, and they've now even their series. Out west, the Jazz hanging with the Thunder. Nobody really thought the Jazz could do that. The Wolves stole one at home, which made me very happy as a Timberwolves fan, against the Rockets. So that series could get interesting.
And what about in the East? How about the Cavs and the Pacers? How do you see that series? They're playing right now as we're recording this. How do you see that series going?
Well, it's basically been LeBron against the Pacers. He hasn't had a lot of help. And if you hear him talk to the media, he's one of those who he always says, I think we can do this, and he's one to use the term I instead of we. I've noticed that a lot. That bothers me a little bit. While he is their best player, and arguably the best player in the world, one man cannot beat a team. And the Pacers are showing that, and they've played very well. They've played great on defense. They've taken Kevin Love and just had him standing in the corner shooting the ball when he's so much more than that, and Cleveland is not using him to his full potential. J.R. Smith has been hit or miss. Jose Calderon, he's a guy that needs to step up more, but on the other side of the ball, Victor Oladipo's been great. Bojan Bogdanovic had a great game 3 against the Cavs, and he just looks like a world beater out there. And Miles Turner's been big for them, and Tristan Thompson's not been able to spread the floor like Kevin Love does, and that hurts the Cavs. But when Thompson's in there, LeBron's able to take more guys off the dribble and try to avoid the traps that the Pacers are throwing at him.
Now, do you think then, and you watch a lot of NBA, you follow the NBA a lot closer than I do. Do you think this might be Cleveland's case, possibly the worst Cavaliers team LeBron's had since going maybe back a decade ago?
Well, it's not as bad as the team we took to the finals that year.
Okay.
That's for sure. The NBA's just gotten the playing field starting to level out. It used to be the NBA was Cavs Warriors. The Spurs could compete when they had Kawhi Leonard healthy. The East has been weak for years, and it's finally starting to level out now with Kyrie going to Boston and the Raptors adding their bench. The Raptors bench is one of the best benches I've seen in the league. They do so much, and you're seeing the East starting to creep back up and be more dominant. And the Cavs team that they have now, while I thought they made some decent moves in the offseason, or not the offseason, but the All-Star break, they're not as good as the Cavs of last year or the year before, clearly. But I don't think they're as bad as the team LeBron took to the finals. It's just competition's gotten better in the East. And let's be honest, LeBron's getting up. He's getting older. He's still the best player in the league, in my opinion,
right.
But he's getting older. And you got to have guys that can knock down those outside shots. And right now, not too many Cavs are amazing jump shooters. Rodney Hood has underperformed. Kyle Korver isn't playing like Kyle Korver a few years ago. Kevin Love is streaky. J.R. Smith is another streaky shooter. I do think the Cavs will win the series despite being down right now, but they are going to have their hands full if they run into Washington or Boston, or Toronto whenever they get to the next round.
That's what I was going to ask you. If Toronto should actually close out that series, and they've been a team that has not always met their expectations either when it comes to playoff basketball, but if they do win this first series, I think they beat the Cavs in the second round. What do you think of that?
If they play the Cavs, they can beat the Cavs. They are a deeper team. Serge Ibaka provides a lot for them. They have a lot on that bench that really does so much for that team. They rotate 10, 11 guys in and out of that lineup. They're just such a deep-seated team, and DeMar DeRozan's finally coming into his own, and they've got C.J. Miles who can knock down jump shots, and Jonas Valanciunas is just a beast underneath, and nobody for Cleveland's going to be able to handle all of them. LeBron can only guard DeRozan, or LeBron can only guard Ibaka, or he can only guard so many guys. And the Cavaliers now, as you see, are more a team built for offense, not defense. And that's where they're falling apart. Even so, if you look at the West, you're looking at the same thing with teams like Oklahoma City, they're more so built for offense instead of defense. And that's where the Portland Trailblazers, that's why they got swept. They were one of the best offensive teams in the league, but they had no defensive presence whatsoever, and that's why the Pelicans were able to just run all over them.
Now, looking at the Miami-Philly series, and I think Philly will close out the series on Tuesday, but do you think that Miami may have laid a blueprint for either Milwaukee or Boston to follow and how to defend the Sixers, how to slow down the Sixers, and maybe beat the Sixers?
Right now, the Sixers, like if I had today, and after watching basketball for the past couple of weeks, and I had to pick a team based on performances today to go to the finals, I'd pick the Sixers. They can shoot. They have size. They play great defense. They have great role players. T.J. McConnell is a guy who, on our show, we sing his praises week in and week out. Ben Simmons is strong as LeBron, maybe right now. He's so strong. If Ben Simmons develops even a mediocre jump shot to where he can make, 12, 15-footers to 18-footers, Ben Simmons will be the best player in the league in about 3 or 4 years. He's that good. The way he can pass, the way he can get in and out and drive to the hoop and slash and spaces the floor and finds open shooters. Ben Simmons is the real deal. Ersan Ilyasova and Marco Bellinelli's contributions to this Sixers team cannot be understated. The way that they get in there and do what they're supposed to do. Bellinelli knows his role. He's a shooter. He does it well. Ilyasova is a guy who can tap out an offensive rebound, and he can also stretch the floor. That's what they do. And Philly right now looks like the best team in the East. But that could change.
I love Bellinelli. I do. Bellinelli, I love. I say to people all the time, I think Marco Bellinelli could be falling down a flight of steps and throw the ball up and it would go in. He shoots from the strangest angles with people draped all over him, and the shots still fall. It's amazing to watch.
It's the style that he has grown accustomed to. Just run off a pick and roll and throw one up, and he can do it. He just lacks the presence on the defensive end to really be a guy that you're going to lock in for a long-term big contract. He's a great shooter. He has really no inside game. He's not a slasher. He is just a spot-up shooter who can create his own shot when need be. And he's a great shot. If he gets the ball from three, you have to believe it's going in. And Philly got him dirt cheap.
Yeah, totally.
Philly got him dirt cheap from Atlanta, just like they did Ilyasova, and those were the two biggest acquisitions for them moving forward, because not only do you add that veteran presence around that young team with them and then Amir Johnson, they take J.J. Redick and give him a break because Redick doesn't need to be playing all those minutes after the long career he's had. And that keeps everybody fresh, and that's why the Sixers are so dangerous. They can do so much.
And I heard you say you guys think T.J. McConnell's praised all the time. I love the guy. I started really paying attention to the Sixers last year, January, February, when they got hot. And one thing about McConnell is just no matter what, he is a max effort guy. He'll give you everything, however many minutes he's going to be on the court. He seems to give you everything he's got every time he's out there. And he's a solid defender, and he can shoot a little bit too.
Yeah, T.J. McConnell, my co-host, TR, sings that man's praises. He's one of those guys who will go out and do whatever you ask him to do. He's a coach's son. He was undrafted, made the team because the coach liked his effort. And he's one of those guys, almost like if you ever watch the movie Rudy, where the coach is telling you have to go out and give that same effort every day, or we're going to throw you off the team. It almost looks like he's playing for his job.
Yeah.
And coming out of Arizona, he is a fantastic asset for the Sixers.
The one thing that worried me with the Sixers, watching these last few games of Miami, it just seemed to me that Miami was able physically to slow them down. And when you can slow the Sixers down, you take them out of what they do best. And it just seemed to me that if other teams kind of adopted that throughout this playoff run, they could give the Sixers a little bit of trouble, and maybe going forward into next year, the Sixers might want to pick up another one of those just big men that just kind of stand in there and don't let anybody push you around kind of player, if you know where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I get that. And the Sixers do have a little bit of an issue. Joel Embiid is he's strong, but he's not going to be a guy that's going to bully people in the paint. The main thing with the NBA is, and the reason why they can slow them down, and that will stop them. But in the NBA nowadays, everybody wants to run. That's the style, and the Sixers are built for that. They're built to run. If you try to run against them, unless you're maybe Golden State or Houston or
Right.
Toronto can get hot. Toronto is the biggest threat to the Sixers, in my opinion. But if you try to run with them, you're not going to beat them because they can run with the best of them.
So out west, you got Golden State, Houston. Who do you think is going to come out of the West?
It looked like it was going to be Houston there after their first two games against Minnesota, but Houston, they're very sloppy in terms of what they do offensively. They're just going to shoot threes. Harden's going to take 5 steps and get a non-existent foul called, because I see it a lot. It happens every game. He takes 6 steps. Nobody calls anything, but whatever.
Right.
That's the world we live in. You just have to deal with it. If Houston's role players show up, they're the best team in the league. But Trevor Ariza is hit or miss. Guys like Ryan Anderson's been hurt. Clint Capella is very important to that team. Guys coming off the bench for Houston really make a world of difference. Eric Gordon's a guy that they need to get hot and to sink shots. That helps them. Gerald Green's been great for Houston since they picked him up. I want to say Golden State is going to come out. I was saying Houston on our show a couple weeks ago, but right now I think all roads lead through Golden State because they have the experience. They've been there before. They've won it before. Houston doesn't have that dynamic playmaker who's going to step up in the big moments because James Harden and Chris Paul are notorious for vanishing in the playoffs when they get far enough. And that could become an issue. That could be a head game. And Golden State knows what to do. They've been there. They've done it, and they will get Curry back, I believe, once they get through San Antonio. And when they do, they're going to be scary.
Yeah, I'd like to see the Sixers obviously get into the NBA Finals. I think they'll get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think that's where the run's going to end. Golden State gets in. Do you really see anybody in the East really having a chance to beat them, or is it one of those the team from the East is going to just have to play perfect basketball?
You're going to have to play 4 games of perfect basketball, and even if you play perfect basketball, I don't know if you could beat them. If they have all 3, Durant, Thompson, and Curry, all healthy and shooting, they're almost impossible to beat. It's just one of those things where the only way you can beat them is to slow the ball down and try to work the ball inside. And you have to have a stretch 4 or 5 who can guard on switches. There's not many teams that are built to do that. So I think Golden State wins it, but they can be beat. But it's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of guys. Toronto, I think, would have a good shot at them. Philly would have a decent shot, depending. But I don't think Philly or Toronto can beat them. But Philly and Toronto may both get a game or 2 at best. But I don't think so.
The one thing I will say, at least maybe not so much the Western Conference, but the Eastern Conference, the playoffs are going to be very exciting. You've got the Indiana-Cleveland series is going to be exciting. You've already got exciting series with the Celtics, Bucks, the Wizards series. I think that going into the second round, we're going to have some exciting series as well. It's not like you're just saying this team's going to win and that's the end of it. In some cases in the West, you say, well, Golden State should win, no problem. Houston should win, yada, yada, yada. In the East, that's some of it's due to injury and the teams being depleted or maybe just not playing up to form. But it just seems that the Eastern Conference playoffs is almost like anybody can win on any given night.
Yeah, it really does. And Boston losing Gordon Hayward at the beginning of the year and then losing Kyrie and Marcus Smart actually made the East really look interesting because now it's like we don't know. You really don't know who's going to pull it out. And the West, Golden State, it looked like they were going to wrap it up today, but they didn't. San Antonio stayed alive, and maybe that's good for San Antonio. That doesn't give, or in the rest of the league, doesn't give the Warriors that extra few days to rest up and get ready to play whoever they would end up playing. I think it would be the Pelicans. But the Utah-Oklahoma City series has been really fun to watch. That's probably been that series, and I've really enjoyed the Sixers-Heat series and watching those two series. I think those two have been the most fun to watch, mainly due to all the chippiness and the teams never give up mentality. But the Toronto-Washington series is starting to get very interesting as well. So the playoffs have been more fun this year than they've been in a long time, because now we don't know the outcome. We don't know who's going to get there, and that's what makes it great.
Well, here's hoping it stays that way. So Nate, tell my listeners where they can find your podcast, and basically where they can find it in the social media world.
Well, we are everywhere that you can find podcasts. We're Wide Men Can't Jump. Not white, it's wide. We're a couple big guys. Wide Men Can't Jump. You can find us on iTunes, Podcast Addict, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio. Anywhere you can find podcasts, we're there. Just search us wherever you download your favorite podcast, and you'll find us there. You can find us at blogtalkradio.com/Wide Men Can't Jump. We're on Facebook. We're at Twitter. We're at Wide Jump on Twitter. We're on Instagram at Wide Men Can't Jump. You can follow us anywhere and holler at us, give us a shout. And you follow us on Twitter, we'll follow you back. We're notorious for that, and we want to be interactive, and we want the people that listen to us to join up with us and have fun. This is a show about having fun and having a good time, and we're also part of the All Pro Nation family of podcasts as well. We're the official NBA podcast of allpronation.com. So you can find us anywhere on the web. Just search Wide Men Can't Jump.
Well, everybody, you heard it. That's Nate Bush. It's wide, not white. Wide Men Can Jump. Brand new addition to the APN Radio Network, as my podcast is also out there as well. So, hey, thanks again for taking the time to talk to me tonight. Let's do it again soon.
Hey, anytime, man. Just let me know. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Hey, so again, we want to thank Nate Bush of Wide Men Can't Jump, the NBA podcast that's now available through the APN Radio Network, for coming on the show and giving us his insight on the NBA and NBA playoffs and everything. You heard what he had to say. Loves the Sixers, thinks that they could be the representative from the Eastern Conference. And, I do agree, and we discussed this, and we'll say it again, that the Eastern Conference really is the one that's kind of the most fun. The Celtics are a depleted ball club at this point in time with the injuries they've had, and you just don't know who really is the best team in the conference. The Sixers certainly played like it. Counting the playoffs, they've won 19 out of their last 20, having lost like twice in the past month or so. So they're looking great. They've got a 3-1 lead and an opportunity to close things out on Tuesday. The Celtics have a fight on their hands with the Bucks. Toronto's got a fight on their hands. They're tied at 2-2. The Pacers are giving the Cavaliers everything they can possibly handle. The Cavs just won on Sunday to tie that series up. I'm not a big believer in the Cavs. And I think I said this when we were talking with Nate. I think this might be the worst team that LeBron James has had. They're not good defensively. If you can shut everybody else down, you let LeBron get his 40 points, he's not going to beat you. It's one of those things. It's LeBron and kind of, I remember Doug Collins was coaching the Bulls way back in the day, and I think Michael Jordan dropped like 50 on the Celtics in the playoff series, and he said, hey, Coach, what was your strategy? He said, basically I told everybody, give the ball to Michael and get the hell out of the way. Well, that's kind of the way it is with LeBron in this ball club. And I know you got Love and Korver and all these other, but if you can shut those guys down, and it's just LeBron at that point, and he can't beat you by himself. As good as he is, and at his age, he's still a great player. I don't think he's the best player in the NBA. I think that's now reserved for the likes of Curry and Harden, but he's still dangerous, and certainly, he rises to the occasion a lot of times and puts the team on his back, but he just can't keep doing it by himself. It's just not going to happen. That's the Sixers song. Let's talk about the Philadelphia 76ers and what they're doing in the playoffs. So, got Embiid comes back on Thursday, has a really good game. He's wearing the mask now. Got Ben Simmons on Saturday, puts up a triple-double. First rookie to do that since Irvin Magic Johnson for the Lakers back in May of 1980. Sixers are up 3-1 on the Heat. They swept Miami out in Miami to take the 3-1 lead. Really, Saturday game, they really had no business winning. They were getting pushed all over the place, had a little fracas before the half, and they just kept battling, and that's what the Sixers seem to do. It's awesome. They're that kind of team. They just, nothing phases them, and they just keep coming at you. Embiid did not have a great game on Saturday, but still, they found a way to win, and they've got an opportunity to close out the Heat Tuesday in Philadelphia. So that's going to be pretty amazing. We talked about the rest of the conference and the other teams. They're really kind of in fights right now. The Sixers have an opportunity to close out the series again, get some extra rest, and watch Cleveland play Indiana, see Toronto finish their series, see Boston struggle with Milwaukee. And I'll tell you right now, the way the Sixers have been playing, and I've said this before, you cannot stop Embiid and Simmons. They are an unbelievable duo. And they are just, there's no defending those guys. Simmons does things that just is unbelievable. Some of the stuff he does. If this, we heard this with Nate, if he can develop any kind of jump shot whatsoever, he's going to be an unworldly player. Embiid is, a big guy that can do stuff in the paint, and it can also, if you leave him open, can drop a 3-pointer on you. The only thing that worries me with the Sixers, and we've seen it with Miami so far, is the blueprint to beat them could just be slow the game down, clutch, grab, be physical, because the Sixers are not a very physical team. They like to run. They like to run and gun, move the ball all over the place, get down the court fast, which is, one of the things people were a little worried about when Embiid came back was the Sixers had gotten, I'm not going to say accustomed to playing without him, but they, won a stretch of games playing without him, and they played a different kind of basketball. It's more of a, fast break, move the ball, run, run and gun type of offense. And now you're bringing Embiid back. You got to feed the big guy underneath a little bit, and his defensive presence is unbelievable. Some of the block shots he came up with on Saturday were just unbelievable. Some of the angles he took, and how he blocked the balls without making any body contact is beyond me. He's an unbelievable player, just absolutely unbelievable player. But my fear, again, is that the Heat may have laid the blueprint in how to beat the Sixers, if not in the next round, maybe the Eastern Conference Finals. And a lot depends on who they play. I don't think the Wizards are going to hold on and beat Toronto. I think Toronto's going to win that series. I don't know about the Boston-Milwaukee series. And quite honestly, I'm not really worried about either one of those teams. I really think the Sixers are going to go to the Eastern Conference Finals. Depending on how they play and who they play, will determine whether or not they can actually get into the NBA Finals. And whether it's Houston, whether it's Golden State, I don't see anybody beating either one of those teams from the East. I just don't. It's fun to watch the Eastern Conference playoffs because you're seeing it. You're seeing Indiana giving Cleveland everything they can handle. You see Milwaukee and Washington kind of mixing it up with Boston and Toronto, but at the end of the day, you just don't know who's going to win. You just don't know who is the best team coming out of that conference. Could it be the Sixers? Maybe. They've won 19 out of their last 20. They haven't lost a game. Gosh, I think since March 13th they've lost 2 games. It's just an unbelievable run. And the thing with the Sixers is they're just going to keep getting better. Markelle Fultz. Missed all those games this year. He's come back and he's contributed a little bit, but think of what he could be next year. And you've got 3 players like that. You got Fultz, you got Simmons, you've got Embiid. Covington signed to a big contract, and then you've got the other guys. I'd love to see him bring Bellinelli back. Hang on to him because what he gives you in terms of just pure shooting is unbelievable. He can the angles he can shoot from and everything else are just unreal. So. it's going to be a lot of fun here with the NBA playoffs going down. And again, it's great time to be a Philadelphia sports fan, to be honest with you. It really is. One of the talk shows the other day were saying, call in and finish this phrase. It's great to be a Philadelphia sports fan because, and my tagline would have been, because the best is yet to come. The Sixers probably don't win an NBA title this year. I'm not going to say it won't happen. I don't think the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl either. The Phillies aren't going to win a World Series this year. Okay, but these teams are headed in the right direction. Even the Flyers and the issues we have with their playoff run this year, they had a really good regular season. And what irritates me with some of the Flyer fans, especially during the season, they were on a one streak where they didn't get a win in it was like a week, 10 days, but they got points in most of the games, and everybody seemed to be happy with it. We lost the game, but we got a point. Nah, that's loser's mentality. I hate that. But each of these teams is headed in the right direction. You got a championship in your back pocket with the Eagles, and you didn't even have it with your number one quarterback who got hurt. And the Phillies are certainly trending in the right direction. The young players they have, Rhys Hoskins is an exciting talent. This guy could be a perennial MVP player if he continues to play like he has. You've got the guys like Nick Williams, Aaron Altier, Odubel Herrera is exciting, although at times you wonder where his head is. J.P. Crawford could be an outstanding shortstop. Alfaro behind the plate. Aaron Nola looks every bit the part of an ace right now. And Nick Pivetta is pitching out of his mind. So some of these question marks are getting answered for the Phillies. Their bullpen has been outstanding. This 13-3 run, I think their starters' ERA is something around 2.5. They're scoring almost 6 runs a game, and their bullpen ERA is about 1.5. I mean, they are just lights out in these last 16 odd games. And the buttons that Kapler's been pushing have been working. Whatever he's been doing has been working. So, everybody's going to jump off his back for a little while and see how it works out. But it's an exciting time. I think for the Philadelphia sports fans, I think the best really is yet to come. We now, that being said, 10 years from now, we could look back on this and go, wow, the Eagles were the best football team not to win more than one Super Bowl. Much like the Buddy Ryan Eagles were the best team not to win a Super Bowl. And the Andy Reid Eagles were also probably the best team not to win a Super Bowl. The Eagles could end up being the best team not to win multiple Super Bowls. The Phillies could never realize an opportunity to go to the playoffs, injuries and whatnot. The Flyers, I still don't think if they don't get good defense and a solid goaltender near, may continue their first-round oustings in the playoffs. And we'll see what happens with the Sixers. You got two superstars, and they've got to coexist. And so far, it looks like they will. But, go back to Orlando, Shaq and Penny. Didn't work out so well. Didn't work out so well at all. Egos, shoe contracts. It's my team. It's his team. And then injuries set in. It's just a bad deal. It really was. So we'll see how it works out. But, hey, everybody, have a great week. Enjoy whatever it is you like to watch, whether it's baseball, whether it's the NBA playoffs, whether it's the NFL draft, which is going to be out very exciting. We'll do this again next week. It'll be episode 17. So thanks again for downloading and listening. On Twitter, it's at BigGreek24. Facebook page is The Sports Greek. Don't forget about allpronation.com and phillysportsblogs.com. Have a great sports week, everybody. We'll do this again next week.